Ben, I gotta tell you, I'm feeling really relaxed because before you called, I was sitting here doing this 5-minute meditation.
Oh, I love it. Meditation is medication.
Mm.
In fact, no, meditation is the best medication. You know, we talk about chemistry all the time, right? We talk about nutrition, we talk about medicine and drugs, and we talk about the physical body, and we talk about a lot of stuff that has to do with what we can see with our eyes, what shows up. But meditation, to me, which is sort of abstract and airy-fairy, is the most powerful health tool you could ever employ. Way more powerful than drugs, way more powerful than anything the medical model could give you, even more powerful than nutrition. To me, my personal belief is working with meditation, understanding meditation is the single most important thing you could do to stay healthy or to reverse yourself to health if you're sick. Now, that's not to say diet's not important. It is. That's not to say nutrition and supplementation and exercise and respiration and oxygenation are not important, because they are. But because of the fact that our physical bodies are secondary in many cases to our mental bodies, if you will, or our mental nature, understanding how to leverage or to hack into our ability to cognate or to think is incredibly important. And that's what meditation does. Meditation is basically harnessing or marshaling or disciplining the mental process. You know, you have a mental biochemistry that neuroanatomists and neurophysiologists call the default mode network. Have you ever heard of this term, the default mode network?
No, I haven't.
So the default mode network is exactly what it sounds. It's a network of biochemical processes and biochemical reactions in the brain that we default to when we're not concentrating on something, when we're just kind of hanging out. Do you ever notice how, I don't know if you have this problem, a lot of people can't sleep at night because their thoughts are racing, right? They don't have the problem during the day, but at night, all these things come up. That's the classic manifestation of the default mode network. When the mind doesn't have anything to do, you're just laying there. You know, it's not watching something, it's not writing something, it's not eating something, it's just laying there. The default mode network comes front and center.
Right.
And if you want to know what the default mode network does, think about when you're laying in bed at night and can't sleep. Now, that's going on all the time.
Right.
But it becomes clear and, you know, at night when you're laying there doing nothing, which is a clue to understanding how important meditation is. Right. Meditation is giving your mind something to do so the default mode network quiets down.
Well, Ben,
so instead of going into default mode, you're going into conscious mode, active mode.
You know, I have that exact issue, and that's also exactly why I have an interest in meditation. It happened to me a few nights ago. My wife and I were watching a show. I was falling asleep by the end of the show, and I said, we just gotta, you know, I gotta go to bed or something. I actually get into bed and I cannot fall asleep because the voice turns on. I have this little, we all have this little narrator inside our head.
That's the default mode network. It's the autobiographical self, they call it. There's all kinds of terms for it, but it's a little voice in your head that everybody has. That's the default mode network. Now, here's the thing. There are ways to get the default mode network to quiet down because, see, the mind does best, or the brain, and there's an interesting distinction between the brain and the mind, but we'll say the brain. The brain does best when it's focusing on something. And this is what all meditative techniques have in common, is they give the mind something to focus on, or the brain something to focus on. They call it mindfulness. And even Johns Hopkins University or Johns Hopkins Medical School, Yale Medical School, Harvard Medical School, UCLA Medical School, Duke Medical School, all the great medical schools, in fact, probably all medical schools now, study this idea of mindfulness because there's a relationship between the physical body and this default mode network, or how we think, how the brain works. And so the body will show up secondary in many ways to a primary activity of the brain. And so by controlling the brain, you can control the secondary manifestation, which is the body. And this is all accomplished through the parasympathetic nervous system, which we talk about all the time, or the vagus nerve, which activates the parasympathetic nervous system. So it's not spiritual. This is the thing about meditation. People think it's spiritual, and it can be spiritual, but it's not necessarily spiritual. You can use meditation for shaping the physical body, for shaping the brain. Epigenetically, You change your genetics. You can change your genetics. The way your genes are turning on and off by meditative techniques. You can shape your neurology, neuroplasticity by meditative techniques. The Oakland A's, the Seattle Seahawks, Phil Jackson, who was the coach of the Chicago Bulls, great athletes use meditation to improve what they call flow or focus. CEOs and high performers use transcendental meditation, which is a type of meditation. What all of these meditative techniques have in common, whether it's spiritual meditation, a meditation for athletic performance, meditations for health, meditations for performing in the business world, what all of these have in common is they give the mind something to focus on, or the brain, depending on how you look at it, something to focus on so the default mode network quiets down. There's a phenomenon that occurs in athletic performance where the crowd goes totally silent, even though there's 50,000 or 60,000 or 100,000 people in the stadium and they're screaming. To the athlete who's in the flow state, because this is what it's called, the flow state, everything's silent because the default mode network has quieted down. It's like they're in this state by themselves. And athletes always talk about this. There's nothing there. They can just see the ball, or they can just see the hoop, or they can just see whatever they're up to in the present moment. And this is a very powerful tool, not just for your mental nature, not even just for your physical nature, but for having a great life. How is it to be in the flow state, in this state of peak athletic performance every minute of every day? And that's really important to understand, because we talk about meditation practice. You've heard that term, right? Meditation practice. Meditation practice is when you spend half an hour meditating. We'll talk about how you do this here in a minute. Is when you spend half an hour, 20 minutes, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever it is, every day on a daily basis practicing. But what are you practicing for? You're practicing for life. Right. Because meditation is, you're supposed to take the meditation, the skills that you learn in practice, or you get that in practice, and apply it to when you're at work. Or apply it to when the IRS is about to audit you, or apply it to when the credit card bill comes, or apply it when your kids are screaming, or when your wife is yelling at you, to apply when you have cancer, to apply it when all of the bumps and bruises and ups and downs and vicissitudes and craziness and chaos of life hit. You want to be able to apply these meditative techniques to that experience. Right. So yes, it's important to have a practice, but you want to keep it in context, right? You want to be able to leverage that practice for when you need it in real life.
Right. When you're strengthening a muscle, essentially. Only it's a little more complex than a muscle.
Exactly. And what you're doing is every time you meditate, you're rewiring your brain. You're accessing, or making it easier to access, certain brain wave states. You know, we've talked about brain waves in the past. Your brain is emanating energy in waves, like everything. It's emanating energy in waves. All living things, all things are emanating energy in waves. And your brain has some specific waves, wave frequencies: beta waves, alpha waves, theta waves, gamma waves, delta waves. The most important ones are your beta waves. This is where the default mode network kicks in. That's the voice in the head. That's for problem solving. That's for surviving. Most of us spend our entire days in beta states, and even nights in beta states. Alpha state and theta state are slower brainwave states, and this is where the power of meditation comes in. Learning to go from beta into alpha and into theta. So there are neurological correlates that can be measured in terms of meditation. There are physiological correlates that are attached to these neurological correlates via the vagus nerve, and these involve vasodilation. One of the best ways to lower your blood pressure is to meditate. Meditation will reduce inflammation. It's got anti-inflammatory properties. I was just reading an article here about a research study that's being done on multiple sclerosis symptoms. Using Tai Chi moves in meditation. Tai Chi is a type of movement meditation. When you meditate, you quiet down the immune system. When you meditate, you improve the digestive system. In fact, all of the things that we talk about with the parasympathetic nervous system are leveraged or accessed via meditative techniques. So this is the classic mind-body link, or the classic example of the mind-body link is by using your mind and using your brain, you control what's showing up in your body. And it is a powerful, powerful, powerful tool if you're dealing with physiologic health issues. And of course, it's especially powerful if you're dealing with mental health issues, depression, bipolar disorder, PTSD, anxiety, insomnia. I mean, it's like, to not take advantage of this tool to address all of these health needs, it's so tragic to me. And that's what we're always talking about nutrition because it's such a simple thing you can do, or exercise, or how you eat. These are simple things you could do to stay healthy without having to interface with the medical model. Meditation is an iconic example of that.
I've heard people say that every fifth grader should be taught meditation.
Absolutely.
It's
kindergarten.
A required course in elementary school. And
the word meditation is kind of, it's got some baggage associated with it. So we got to come up with a different term. That's why in medicine they call it mindfulness.
Right.
Basically, it's the same idea. It's giving the mind one thing to focus on. And the easiest thing to give you a couple ideas here on how to get into it, the easiest thing to give your mind to focus on is something that's attached to us, that's endless. We have this endless metronome inside our body called the breath.
Right.
This is why all beginning meditative techniques, or most beginning meditative techniques, will tell you to focus on the breath because it's right there with you. And then when you focus on the breath, of course, you breathe, you're paying attention to oxygenation and detoxification, so you get that benefit as well. But just paying attention to the breath, the in and the out. But you can do it to any body part. You can pay attention to your hand or pay attention to your foot, and you'll get into a meditative state. You can pay attention to ambient noise, to ambient sounds.
Right.
You'll get into a meditative state. You can pay attention to your thoughts and get into a meditative state. You can pay attention to awareness and get into a meditative state. You can pay attention to God or whatever sense of spirituality that you have. You can get into a meditative state. You can pay attention to nature, to trees when you're out in the woods, and you can get into a meditative state. It involves paying attention to one thing. The breath is the most non-denominational thing. It's the most non-spiritual thing for people who are intimidated or freaked out by the idea, by the association meditation has with spirituality, just focusing on the breath. That's the simplest way to get yourself to activate the vagus nerve, to get into all of the parasympathetic modes of functioning, and to go into from a beta state into an alpha state, or alpha or theta state. When you do that, your immune system gets stronger, inflammation is reduced, anxiety is suppressed, you just feel better. It's an amazing thing to have for your quality of life. And as I say, you can do all these things once a day, twice a day for practice, but the real benefits accrue, or the real benefits show up when you're driving in rush hour, or when you're waiting in line at the bank, or when your boss is harping at you, or whenever the inevitable ups and downs of life come by. If you're sick, it's an amazing strategy for not only getting better, but for feeling better. And that's really important. I don't care if you've been diagnosed with like the worst kind of cancer and you're terminal, you got 3 months to live. If you meditate, you may not add years to your life or add months to your life, but you're going to feel better. And that's the goal here. That should always be the goal of healing or of a healthcare professional, is to help the patient feel better. And I'm not talking about healthcare professionals who work in a clinic. I'm talking about us as individuals. We're healthcare professionals for our own life, and our goal, no matter how sick we are, our goal should be to figure out how to feel better. And along with nutrition and diet and exercise and oxygenation, there's no better way than activating the relaxation, the rest and digestive nervous system with meditation.
I had a friend many years ago who had a lot of trauma in her life. And I remember her saying, please don't turn off the music. There has to be music playing. There has to be something on, or else I'm going to go into a spiral of my own thoughts.
That's exactly right.
She made a real impression on me that her own psychology was her enemy. Yeah. She was in a constant conflict with her own life.
She had to have something else to do. Why do you think we like movies so much? Or even television. When you're watching movies and you're on television, you're disassociating. You're not thinking. Right. That voice in your head is usually pretty quiet. That default mode network, depending on how good the movie is. If it's a crappy movie, if it's a boring movie, the default mode network will kick in. But if it's a really, really good movie, if we have the experience of that default mode network shutting down and we're watching a movie, we'll say that's the best movie I ever saw. That's the most, right? Think about the best movie you ever saw. Didn't it engage you so much that default mode network was not?
Exactly. Total disassociation is really what we're after with entertainment.
That's right. How about if we looked at our life like a movie? Couldn't this be the greatest movie ever?
Right.
Right? A three-dimensional immersion movie A total immersion movie experience. Somebody once told me time, T-I-M-E, total immersion movie experience. That's what time is.
That's great. That's great. The problem with time is that it has consequences. Your decisions have consequences, and
watch them.
There's not always a happy ending. So
that's where meditation comes in.
Right.
Meditation is watching. So, there's an element of doing, but there's also an element of watching. And the trick is to be able to do and watch at the same time. In Eastern mysticism, they call it doing and not doing. Doing, not doing. And it's kind of this paradox, seeming paradox of you're doing, but you're not doing. And that's when you're doing, but you're watching yourself do the doing. And that's a classic way of applying meditation to your day-to-day life. And these are great ideas. These are very powerful ideas for those who want to use them. But even if you don't want to go that far, just watching your breath for 5 minutes in the morning and 5 minutes at night, and then using that skill to deal with your life can help lower your blood pressure, can help you feel better in your life, better quality of life. It can help you in your relationships, in your job, in your business. It's just a powerful, powerful tool that we can do by ourselves and that we can use on our own to have a great life.
Well, I see it as sort of like creating a baseline. There's a nominal consciousness, and then all of our other experiences are applied to that. If you don't know what the baseline is, it's very difficult to sort of have a sense of the measure and meaning of all of your other experiences.
Exactly right.
and
they call it pure. That's called pure awareness. Have you ever heard of that term? Pure awareness. Awareness just. We're always aware of something, but that implies there's this thing called awareness.
Right.
When you say I'm aware of, and to separate those two out, to see that there's this thing that's just called awareness, that's a skill set, that once you start to see that and tease that out and make a distinction between awareness and awareness of something, now you have some control.
Right.
You can choose what you're aware of instead of going to the default. You can start to choose things, pick and choose. Most of us just go into default, which of course is based on conditioning. It's based on our histories. It's based on our parents. It's based on the culture.
Right.
In our society, it's based on advertising and marketing and other subtle, nefarious manipulations, right? Meditation in a way is like taking control of your mind back. Instead of just going to default, driving by McDonald's. A lot of us drive by McDonald's and we automatically go in and get the French fries because we saw a commercial yesterday. Or we've been seeing commercials our whole life, so we immediately go. Or a lot of us will take antibiotics just because we've been told to do that. Instead of stepping back and seeing what's going on and why we're making the decisions we're making and what our motivations are, or whether they're conscious motivations or not. That's some powerful stuff.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It's potentially revolutionary in many ways. Our existence in our contemporary world, much of our existence is reactionary. Our decision-making process is as you say, it's based on who we've been sculpted by culture and society to be, but there is this actual conscious spark that has the ability to differentiate, to make a decision for ourselves, and to be able to get to the point at which we can insert ourselves into the argument we always have with our spouse, or the knee-jerk reaction that we have to our kid spilling a drink or something like that. To be able to insert ourselves and say, hold on, I'm not going to just do follow the path of anger or whatever is elicited. I'm going to take a step back and I'm going to say, who do I really want to be in this situation?
That's great. You said something really interesting. You said insert yourself, right? Like insert yourself in the middle, right? There's an insertion in the middle. What does the word meditation mean? Middle. Mediate means to come in the middle, right? So that's exactly what's happening. You're kind of inserting yourself between you, whatever your normal automatic, your robot self, the automaton, if you will, and the experience. You're inserting your conscious self between it. So instead of just breathing, now you're watching your breath. You're inserting yourself between the automaton that's doing the breathing and the breathing itself, or the experience and the automaton that's going to react to their children and the experience. You're inserting yourself between, and that's where the word meditation comes from.
Ben, let's say somebody's wanting to get started with meditation. Do you have any advice for them?
Tips. Yeah. That's a great question. First of all, don't worry about your posture. You don't have to sit cross-legged. You could lay down on the couch. Problem with laying down is if you really get into a meditative state, you may find yourself falling asleep, and that's not good. Thomas Edison, you know what he used to do? He used to meditate, by the way, Thomas Edison. He would meditate with marbles in his hand. He'd hold marbles in his hand like this, and then if he fell asleep, the marbles would drop. So that would train him to be able to meditate without falling asleep.
Right.
That's one downside to meditation is we tend to fall asleep when it happens. That's why laying down can be a problem. But it's not like you have to sit cross-legged or sit with your back straight. You know, a lot of people say sit with your back straight and that energy will be conducted a certain way. No. If you're meditating simply for what we're talking about here, to activate the parasympathetic nervous system, the vagus nerve, to allow the relaxation response to kick in, to go into alpha state or theta brainwave state where you're more creative and more relaxed, you can do it laying down. You just got to worry about falling asleep. Secondly, it's as simple as watching or listening or activating the senses on one thing. And it can be a thought, it can be a sound, it could be your breath, it could be a body part. It is as simple as that. And third of all, it is normal. It is completely natural for you to lose your attention and start thinking about stuff because it's the default mode network. You default into it, and you've defaulted into it. If you've just started a meditation practice, you've defaulted into it your whole life, maybe 40, 50, 60 years, depending on how old you are. So it's totally normal to lose that one-pointed focus. And don't beat yourself up about it. Really, the meditation part is the returning. The meditation part is when you go back. So there's nothing wrong with going back because that's when you're meditating. When I don't know if you've ever experienced this, you're sitting there meditating and you're trying to focus on your breath or focus on your heartbeat or one thought, and then all of a sudden you notice, oh my God, I've been thinking for the last 5 minutes about my laundry, about my kids, about the car, and all, right? So beat yourself up. No, because the return, you go, okay, I'm going back. That's the meditation. It's going back, the returning. So the more you return, in a way, the better off it is. So going off into a tangent, going off into the ethers of thought is actually not necessarily a bad thing because it allows you to really activate the meditative process, which is going back to the breath. So don't beat yourself up. It's not necessarily a spiritual thing. It's as simple as focusing on one thing, and don't worry about your posture. Do it regularly, even if it's for 10 seconds. And remember that meditation practice is practice for life. When life shows up, that's when you want to use your meditation skills that you learned by practice.
Yeah, I think people have a sort of extreme view of what meditation is. They imagine this Buddhist monk sitting out in the snow, completely oblivious to all existence. And I was actually a little bit adverse to meditation when I first started learning about it because I thought, you know, why should I not think? Why would I want to waste time? I always want to be thinking. I want to be making use of the time that I have. But you know, like we say, it's like an exercise. You develop a more focused ability to think as a result of just marshaling your mind, taking control of your mind.
It's not thinking. You know, people say I can't shut off my mind. No, don't worry about that. It's not about shutting off your mind. It's about watching your mind. Or it's about watching something. It's not about shutting off your mind. When you're watching something, your mind will naturally quiet down. You don't want to focus on shutting down your mind. I can't stop thinking. Focus on one thing. Your brain will take care of the stopping thinking. You focus on one thing. In other words, there's a positive side to it, which you're focusing on one thing. There's a negative side to it. I want my brain to quiet down. Forget the negative side. Focus on the positive side, which is actually doing something. Focusing on the breath, focusing on a thought, whatever it is. Just place your attention on one thing. That's what all meditative techniques have in common.
Well, I hope some fans of Critical Health News will give it a shot who haven't tried it before, and you know, hopefully let us know what
it's a vacation for your mind. John, it's a vacation for your mind. You ever hear people say, "I had to take a vacation from my vacation"? You know, I went on vacation.
Sure. I've had a lot of those.
Brought your mind with you. A vacation. You could have a vacation, a true vacation, vacation for your mind, sitting on the couch or laying down in your bed.
Right. Right, absolutely. Well, you see the guitar hanging up in the background. That's my normal form of meditation.
That's right. It's a great one. Sound, music, physical discipline. That's definitely a great one. In fact, Yogi Berra famously said, how can I think and hit the ball at the same time? Hitting a baseball is a great meditation. Yeah, guitar, hitting a baseball, sports. These are all meditative techniques or meditative pastimes that don't really get counted as meditation, but that's really from a literal mental brain perspective. That's exactly what hitting a baseball or hitting a tennis ball or getting in the zone with your guitar, it really is.
Well, I look forward to hearing from our audience about their experiences with meditation. Yeah. I hope some folks who haven't tried it before give it a shot.
Yeah, put some comments in there. I'd like to know what people think about meditation. I'd like to know if you think it's really weird and like out there and something you don't want to do, or is it too spiritual for you, or is it just something that you think you can leverage from a practical standpoint if you're dealing with a health challenge?
Well, I tell you what, when I turn that voice off at night, I am asleep like this. It works like magic.
Exactly.